Hey guys, today I think we're going to do something a little bit different, and I know this is like the first video in a very long time I've put up on this channel, but we need to talk about SpongeBob. And I'm not talking about the show necessarily, I'm not talking about the memes or the nostalgia bait or what have you. I'm talking about his newest theatrical outing, the SpongeBob movie, The Search for SquarePants. On the surface, I've heard people say this aplenty. The movie's loud, obviously. It's a SpongeBob movie, what'd you expect? It's got an Ice Spice song in it, talking about being a big guy. That's got all of the 45-year-old men on Twitter crying that Ice Spice is possibly in a SpongeBob movie. How evil is this movie? Whatever. It's got a plot that revolves around a roller coaster height requirement. That's the main catalyst of SpongeBob's arc in this movie. And if you just even glance at the many posters this film has had, it looks like just another adventure to try and sell some merch, sell some toys, which it's been working. But if you look a little bit deeper at what this film is trying to say, if you actually sit down and watch the movie, like I'm sure most people complaining about it probably haven't done, and if you really, really watch it, and you hear what it has to say, this film is doing something incredibly sophisticated, something very smart, and something that is very much needed in today's landscape, I guess, in our country. It is a deconstruction of the entire concept of growing up. Most animated sequels are about the protagonist learning to be more mature, right? Learning to grow up. And we've seen this. We've seen this in Puss in Boots. We've seen this in Kung Fu Panda. We've seen this in How to Train Your Dragon. You know the drill. Put away those childish things. Accept the responsibility that you have to undertake as an adult, as a big guy. But Search for SquarePants kind of flips that script on its head just a little bit. It argues that SpongeBob's desire to become a big guy, a swashbuckling, hard and tumble, tough as nails pirate, is actually the most destructive thing that he could ever possibly do to himself. This movie has a lot to say, and I know people are dismissing it. It's a SpongeBob movie, right? But this movie isn't about him growing up. It's not about SpongeBob becoming an adult. It's about him realizing that growing up, it's a trap. And I know that myself and most people would probably agree with that. The inciting incident is very simple in this movie. SpongeBob wants to ride the big ride at Captain Bootybeard's, and he wants to be physically and metaphorically a big guy. And the film immediately links this desire to masculinity, like present-day masculinity. Specifically, the performative kind of masculinity. The big, the no emotion, rough and tumble, that kind of thing. Very shallow. He looks at Mr. Krabs, this supposed ex-swashbuckler. We'll get into how incredibly done Mr. Krabs was in this film. And he thinks that is the pinnacle of existence, just being his awesome, hard-as-nails guy. He thinks that he needs to trade his bubbles, something that makes SpongeBob SpongeBob, his bubbles, trade that in for a sword, or a rope, or a boat, or something that represents just being this big guy. And this is where things actually get surprisingly sharp. And I didn't catch all of these. I've seen the movie twice now, and I didn't catch all these the first time I watched it. SpongeBob feels inadequate. Definitely not because he is inadequate. He's not. But because he's measuring himself against a false history. As we get further into the film, we realize that Mr. Krabs was lying about who he was and about his past. Mr. Krabs' stories of glory made SpongeBob feel small, and that's very well conveyed in the opening 10 minutes of the film. So when he goes down to the basement of the Krusty Krab and he summons the Flying Dutchman, he's not actually looking for the Flying Dutchman. He's not looking for a ghost. He's looking for a shortcut to manhood. He wants the validation of a, quote, real pirate. He wants so badly to feel that he's enough, that he is this big guy, when in reality, he had it this whole time. He was plenty, just as he was. He did not have to change for anybody. And that is such a potent message, especially in today's world where children have so much responsibility put on them. And we'll get into Mr. Krabs in a little bit more depth here in a minute. But I do want to talk about Mark Hamill as the Dutchman just for a sec. I don't know why they didn't get Brian Doyle Murray as the Dutchman. Obviously, he's been the voice of the Flying Dutchman for about 25 years now. But Mark Hamill's performance was genius. He did incredible. And it's not just because it's funny. It's because it's predatory. And I don't mean that like in a graphic way, obviously. It's a SpongeBob movie. But when you watch the movie, you see that he is preying on SpongeBob this entire time. And it's honestly kind of sad to see for SpongeBob. It's emotional. The Dutchman was the perfect villain for this specific story because he weaponizes SpongeBob's insecurity. He knows that SpongeBob is the only one that he could ever possibly find in Bikini Bottom that is truly innocent, that is truly good-hearted, that is truly the one that could get the Dutchman exactly what he wants. He calls SpongeBob big guy. He validates the very thing that SpongeBob is so insecure about. He tells SpongeBob, yeah, you can be a real tough pirate just like me, absolutely, but you have to do what I say or else it's not going to work. And SpongeBob being in this crazy situation that he is, being in this insecure position that he is, he believes him. Now, this is a classic bad mentor dynamic. You've seen this a million times. This movie didn't invent it, but this movie is showing us just how easy for innocent, truly innocent people who are soft, people who are gentle, kind, maybe a little bit different, how easy it is for them to be manipulated by somebody who wants something out of them, who wants something by someone promising to make them tough, or to make them fit in, or to make them whatever. The arc here isn't SpongeBob learning to be a pirate. It's not SpongeBob truly becoming a big guy. It's not SpongeBob becoming this swashbuckling adventurer. It is a tragedy of him trying to be one and losing his soul and his friendship with Patrick because of that. Because of that want and that need of him to be validated, of him to be the big guy. He loses everything. And there is an incredibly powerful moment at the end when, spoilers obviously, when SpongeBob does lose his soul. He sells his soul to the Dutchman and he loses. Dutchman got what he wants. Dutchman betrays Barb, who was an amazing character in this movie, by the way. I hope we get to see her in the show at least a little bit. But he turns on Patrick, his best friend. He loses everything. And him and Mr. Krabs turn into these ghosts, and they are destined and cursed to be the new Dutchman until they can maybe eventually trick someone else into going on this journey with them so they can get their soul and they can become real again. It's crazy. And I was very shocked both times with how mature that final scene is in the big rock room right after the Dutchman wins. And my favorite part of this film, and this character has been my favorite in the show for a long time, and that is Mr. Krabs. I think, and this is, you can agree with this if you want, you don't have to. I think that this is the best that Mr. Krabs has been characterized in the entire show, period. Usually, especially, seasons 10, I'd say like seasons 7, 8, and then like 10, 11, and 12, he is just a caricature of greed, right? He loses all of his morals. He is just flanderized to the wall of just being this epitome of greed and doing everything he can to help himself. But here, he's a father figure realizing that he messed up. Mr. Krabs was done so incredibly well in this movie, and I know that myself and a lot of other people's biggest complaints with, not really so much seasons, again, 13 through 15 and 16, but, before the show got back on track, at least a little bit, was Mr. Krabs' just complete character assassination. The scene where Mr. Krabs realizes that his lies made SpongeBob feel so small and worthless, that hit really hard. The subtext here is obviously parental guilt, but it's also just guilt for lying to your friend. And I'm so thankful that the movie doesn't throw in jokes during these emotional moments. They let them land. Mr. Krabs realizes that by glorifying himself, his own tough past, which doesn't even exist, he alienated the only person that he cares about the most. His journey to the underworld isn't to save an employee. It's not. It is to save his son from making the exact same mistakes that he did. This film has some of the best character development that I've seen in an animated film in a long time, and no one's giving it its flowers because it's SpongeBob. I don't understand. It's one of the very few times where I actually agree with the critics on this. And the ending of the film is where the big guy philosophy completely collapses. Understandably so. If this were a normal, standard theatrical film, SpongeBob would finally pick up a sword, he'd duel the Dutchman, and he would win. He would earn his manhood, and that would be the end. Right? It'd be fun. Cookie, cutter, fodder, whatever. But that is not how it goes. At all. He wins by blowing bubbles. And this is something that I didn't get the first time I watched this film. He wins because the first time I watched it, I'm like, why don't you just take it? Why don't you just do this? Why don't you just fight him? Why don't you just do that? Because that's not who SpongeBob is. SpongeBob is funny and innocent and silly. And he wins by being silly. The film's thesis statement is that SpongeBob's childishness, his optimism, his innocence, his bubbles, his softness is actually a form of intestinal fortitude that is so much stronger than any pirate's toughness, stronger than any man's rough and tumbleness. He becomes a big guy not by changing who he is, but by accepting that he doesn't have to change anything. It's a story that tells kids, and quite honestly, us adults too, that you don't need to harden your heart to survive in this world. Yeah, it sucks sometimes. This world can be devastating and testing and hard, but you don't need to be cynical to be an adult. The search for SquarePants wasn't a physical search for SpongeBob or a search for a physical pair of pants. It's SpongeBob searching for himself, realizing that he was already enough, just the way he was. So yeah, it's a movie about a sponge named Bob wanting to ride a roller coaster. Right? That's it. But it's also a very beautiful story on self-acceptance and knowing that you matter and you are enough. And that, I think that's pretty cool.